Hello and welcome back to Why We Write Fantasy. I'm Oscar Cesene,
And I'm KJ Aiello.
and today we'll be talking about writing inspiration.
Yes. I feel like with fantasy writing, the inspiration is just in abundance, but sometimes we really struggle. But first, Oscar, tell me, what are you reading?
I'm rereading Foundation by Isaac Asimov. The season 2 in Apple TV is out, and I just watched the first one, and I thought, like, I think I need to reread this. I read this when I was in like middle grade, I think, or no, high
Hmm.
school. By high school, middle grade's too young. I read this in high school, so I just wanted to take a look. I got the book, and I'm reading that right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, do you do like when a show comes out that's based on a book, particularly in fantasy, do you tend to do a read along?
No, I not. It's not often that I reread things unless I really like them.
Right.
Um, and in this case was just because there was a lot of things that I didn't remember, and I just want to make sure that they are part of the book and the story.
Right.
Um, because I just I just watched the first season, so it's like, is this how the book was? Yes or no. So it's kind of like out of
Hmm.
curiosity. I usually don't reread things unless I really 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 like them, or is there's
Yeah.
anything in particular that I want to talk about?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I love doing a read along, like just say like The Witcher or something like that, although I've never read The Witcher, which I should. But doing a read along with either, the movie or the show is really interesting from a writer's perspective because there are almost always there are pretty significant differences, but it's
Yeah.
like how do you write for a different platform, for a
It's a
different
different. Yeah,
medium?
it's a different
I
medium.
think
Yeah.
it's fascinating,
Yeah.
and what did they miss out on? What could they have done better? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this particular case was just out of curiosity, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
like some I hate when people say like, "Oh, the book is better." It's like, no, the book is different. Like
Yeah.
you might
I
not
mean,
like the
sometimes it is.
take. Sometimes, yeah, but you might
Yeah.
not like the take of the director or the screenwriters on a show or a
Yeah.
movie, but it might be still good. It's just a
Mhm.
different story. You need to tell it differently because
Absolutely.
yeah, the
Yeah.
audience is different and all that.
Yeah.
In the case of The Witcher, I think you're going to be very disappointed
Oh, no.
because
Yeah.
the show is completely different than the books. So
Yeah,
it's
season 3.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I didn't
Anyways.
even finish season 2, but yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind season 2, but season 3 was just I
Okay.
anyways, no
Anyway,
bad
what are you
reviews
reading?
here. Yes, what I'm reading. Speaking of good reviews, though, and reading things twice, I just finished for the second time Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is the novel that is taking book talk and bookstagram by storm. So I read it for a second time. I will probably at some point read it again. This is going to be one of those novels that's going to be I go back to once a year. Definitely. So
Oh,
that's what
cool.
I
Okay.
just finished reading.
Okay.
Glowing
Okay.
review. Everybody go scramble and get a copy. And there's going to be 5 books in this series. And I just like, I'm losing it.
Okay.
Dragons. I'm losing it.
I would
That's
say
what I'm.
everybody go and get it. If you like that type of fantasy, go and get it. If you're like
No,
me, don't get it.
no, go and get it.
No.
Why? I'm so curious why, if you're like you, what is it about this type of fantasy and the tropes that you just don't gravitate towards?
You know what? It would be good to do an episode about that. We should
We
do that. We should
should.
do that
We
later.
should.
Yeah,
Okay, make a note. Let's do an
let's make a
episode
note
on that
about
later.
that.
Yeah, tropes that
Okay.
Oscar hates. Which I feel
Yeah.
like will get a lot of views.
Yes. Okay, so let's go into our topic today. So we're talking about inspiration, like
Yeah.
how, as a writer, how do you get inspired? Like, what are the things that you do? There's so many things online. You can Google writer inspiration. You're gonna get ideas. You can get so many things out there. But in the
Yeah.
end, inspiration comes different to each one of us. So today we're particularly talking about for KJ and for Oscar, what
Mhm.
does inspiration mean? Like what how do we get
Mhm.
inspiration? Like we can get like writer's block, how do we get out of it? All those things. So
Yeah.
why don't we begin? KJ, why don't you start like when you're about to write, let's say that it's
Mhm.
one day that you want to write and you want to get inspired. Like how do you prepare for that? Do you prepare or it's more like a natural thing? Like what's your process?
I kind of want to touch on the brand new project
Yeah,
right
let's
now.
do brand new. Like you're just
Yeah.
beginning. Yeah.
So I'm just getting started. So the first thing I do, and I will always remember our conversation, Oscar. The first thing that I have to do when I'm starting a new project is create a Spotify playlist. It is all about music for me. And I go in so far as, I'm curating the whole playlist. I'm listening to new tunes, and it can be instrumental. It can be, a lot of the times it's movie and TV soundtracks. Sometimes there's lyrics. But I even curate an image, and it's got a title, all my playlist is like, it is so important to me. My Spotify playlist, if I ever lost them, I would be devastated.
When you do that, like for example, you're taking a walk, you're listening to that, and you
Yes.
get inspired by the music.
Absolutely. And, like, during the pandemic, a lot of that has changed. I walk a lot less now, and I find it's really impacting my ability to be creative because I'm constantly in, like, sort of, the monotonous same routine every day. So I would like to get back to walking.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the music is number 1 for me,
Okay.
when I'm starting a new project. I also, at the same time, I start putting together a private Pinterest board.
Hmm.
So I get my visualizations. I start looking through different images of what my characters would look like. So then I can get inspiration. It actually helps me to keep it consistent throughout the novel because sometimes, like in your head, things change, right? It takes
Yeah.
you what, like 6 months to a year to get a first draft out for, quick writers. Um, you can forget what your character's eye color is, or are they, what's their height, or whatever the case may be. But being able to have that visual, I guess sort of like tree stump, that post, the flag in the ground to be able to, work around, it keeps the consistency, and that's not something that you need to go back and change. Yeah. How about
Okay.
you? Tell me about you, Oscar.
Um, I mean, music. I listen to music all the time, like when I'm working, when I'm
Mhm.
walking, like all those things. But I never. I don't. It does. It does nothing to me. Because what happens with me is that when I'm writing, um, I'm usually so focused that whatever music it's in the background, it completely. I don't hear it. I mean, I know
Yeah.
there's something there, but I'm so focused writing that it doesn't. So for me, it doesn't really make a difference. Like when I want to
Yeah.
listen to music, I listen to music, and that's the only thing I do. Like if I'm taking a walk and all that. But
Mhm.
that's a thing. Like I think in my case for inspiration, more than the process, but more like what inspires me is. So I walk. I take at least
Yeah.
yeah, I walk at least 10,000 steps a day. Even when I'm working from home, I take a break, or after work, I just take a walk and go
Mhm.
outside. I live really close to the lake, so I go to the lake and walk around. So it's very peaceful, and
Mhm.
I just start thinking on the things that are happening in my story and what how it can change. Um, the other way that I get, I mean, I do the same thing. I don't do like a Pinterest thing, but I started using AI, like generative AI, to
Mhm.
create my characters because I'm not
Yeah.
that skilled when I'm drawing. Like I can do like a sketch or something like that, but I cannot really do a professional drawing. So I created with AI. I start creating what I want, and once I get like something that is similar to the character that I have in mind, I print it and I put it in my wall.
Yeah.
So when I'm writing, I just look at the characters like, oh, this is the character I'm working on. I look at the setting, like depending if
Mhm.
it's again fantasy, sci-fi, what I'm doing, I create something like that and I print it and put it in my wall. So my wall is like in front of my like behind my monitor. It has a lot of images that I created that tell me what my characters look like, what the setting looks like. Like even if I'm doing like a scene in let's say a kitchen, which sounds pretty
Mhm.
boring, but I just thought about a kitchen. But if I'm creating a scene in the kitchen, I create the kitchen in my head. When it's something like that, when it's not people, I usually do it manually. I just draw a kitchen and I know how it looks. So if I'm writing things like, okay, so my character turns to the right and grabs a coffee, I need to make sure that in my image,
Mhm.
the coffee machine is on the right.
Yeah.
So those little things help me more than like, especially those things. It's not more like, it's not a lot of inspiration. It's more like reminding me who the character is.
Right.
And I think for me, like inspiration comes in different ways. Like walking is one. Like it
Mhm.
allows my mind to just wander and start thinking about things. Another thing that I do for inspirations, I read the news all the time, and I get inspired the things that are happening in the world.
Right.
Because in the end, the things that I write, either fantasy, sci-fi, whatever I'm writing, they're tied to the things that are happening today, or those
Yeah.
things I like. Social commentary, like political commentary, even if it's in fantasy and sci-fi. So a lot of the things that are happening, I like to introduce a few things there,
Yeah.
because the way I see fantasy and sci-fi, it's like a really easy way to
Yeah.
get some complex ideas across. So I do that. I guess the other thing that I do for inspiration is like when I'm walking, like sometimes I just go and grab a coffee by myself without. And it's funny because I don't grab my phone. I just sit there without headphones, without phone, without anything, just drinking a coffee, like a I don't know.
Watching people.
Yeah, and I try to
I
listen to
love it.
conversations. Maybe if I'm not listening, I'm like, oh, this person. I don't care about their lives. It's more like I want to see how people interact with each other,
Right. Yep.
and
Yep.
that's one of the things that I. And it's funny because with my writing group, everybody says that my dialogue is really good. Like the banter that I do with my characters is really good, and I think that's a lot that comes from listening to how people
Yeah.
talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like even in a show like ours right now, like you and I
Yep.
have a certain way to engage in a conversation, but if I'm talking to somebody else, I may have a different one. So I like to learn those things, and I just
Mhm.
start getting ideas. I always carry a small notebook with me, and a pen, and if I
Mhm.
get an idea, I just write it down, like handwriting, like an
Mhm.
animal. But I just find that way more inspiring. That because if I
Yeah.
open my phone and I write something in my notes, I'm gonna get a notification. I'm gonna get work emails. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
messages from my friends. And right now I'm focusing on something else. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like my way to get inspired on a bunch of things.
Yeah. You know what? It's so interesting. As you were saying that, I was thinking we should do a whole episode. So, I have a background in neuroscience and psychology, and there is actually neuroscientific, it's not proved because nothing in science is actually ever 100% proved, but very compelling theories that suggest that walking and exactly what you were doing, just listening to other people's conversations, it actually works on a neurophysiological level to be able to generate ideas and to tap into that creativity. So, I mean, Stephen King wrote about it. He didn't talk about the neuroscience nerd part that I'm doing right now, but in his book on writing, which I highly recommend,
It's a really good
um,
book. Yeah.
it is a really good book, but he always recommends the walking. And if you are stuck, just listening to be a creeper eavesdropper, just listen to other people's conversations. And it really, really helps. And I can attest that Oscar's dialogue is tight, it's realistic, it makes sense. And so obviously there's something that you're doing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Talking about dialogue quickly is one of the things that I find really cool. Like if I like, I wouldn't say sitcoms, but like shows that are more lighthearted. Like if you think about like The Office, Parks and Recreations,
Yeah.
like
Was
all
it
that, like Brooklyn
9-9
Nine
or
Nine,
Brooklyn
those
Nine-Nine?
Brooklyn Nine
Yeah.
Nine, it's amazing. It's lighthearted, it's
Yeah.
funny, and the way that they structure dialogue is so good. It's back and forth. It's
Yep.
engaging. So well, that's another thing that I do. Like I know people. The things that if you listen to what people are talking in a regular conversation, they change topics. Like not they, like we as humans, we
Mhm.
change topics all the time,
Mhm.
and it's so quickly that it doesn't make any sense. If you write like that, you're gonna lose the reader. You need
100%.
to
Yeah.
write in a different way. So
Mhm.
watching this type of shows where the banter is back and forth and it's funny, it's engaging, that gets a better idea on how to write things. And sometimes
Yeah.
for me, like I'm a very sarcastic person, so sometimes just
What?
listening to surprise,
This
um,
is a shocker.
sometimes listening to a joke in
Mhm.
in one of those shows makes me think of a story.
I love
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Teeny
So
tiny moments of
it's
inspiration.
one of those
Love
things.
it.
Like,
Yep.
just to give you an idea, like yesterday I was talking to a friend at work, and we were chatting about like activities during the summer and all that.
Mhm.
And she mentioned something about camping, and it's like, I hate camping
Oh god,
because
yeah.
it's like I have like zero skills. And we're chatting, and I just said, I don't know how. Like, you know what? Like, I have like zero outdoor skills. And if a zombie apocalypse happened, I'm pretty sure my role would be becoming a zombie, because I
Yeah,
have like,
gracefully transition.
I can't have any. Yeah, I would gracefully
Yeah.
gracefully transition into a zombie, but because I cannot see myself like grabbing a gun and a knife and
Yeah.
survive without water. And it's like, you know what, just
I feel
eat
like you're
eat
a
my
nihilist
brains.
too, though, so this would be, like, 100% on brand for Oscar.
Yeah, but
Okay, fine.
what I wanted to say is
Yeah.
that I made that joke, and she
Yeah.
laughed, and it was funny, and I liked it so much that I put it in my social media. And then I thought, like, what if I write like a short story from the zombie perspective? And I started
Oh,
writing that.
yes.
I started writing
Really?
that, and it's funny, it's stupid, it's just hilarious from my point of view. It's like, now I'm a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
zombie, like a kind of like a mindless-ish zombie,
Yeah.
that I'm wandering around. So
Yeah.
it's a different take on something, and my
Mhm.
inspiration for that came out of a joke from a conversation that I was
Yeah.
having with another person.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I do. Like, I talk to a lot of people. I like to talk to people with completely different points of view with me, like political,
Mhm.
social, everything. And instead of saying, like, you know what, you don't agree with me, I let's not chat about it. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
I totally disagree with what you're saying. Tell me more, because I want
Yeah.
to understand your point of view. Because when I'm writing, I might want to write a person like you. I might want to write someone that is a different uh it has like a different mindset than my
Yeah.
character. And it's just gonna make the because in the end, like, dialogue and those things, you need to have conflict there.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. There's gotta be a reason that these people are bantering back and
yeah,
forth, like, let's just not talk about, like, tea time. We don't need that.
no,
Leave that to the
imagine the
literature and latte or sorry, the what is it, that what's like, Orcs and Lattes? Ah, what is that
the one that
novel?
I was reading, Legends
Yeah,
and Lattice. Yeah,
Legends and I'm Literature and Latte. That's the developers of Scrivener, so we're kind of,
yeah,
like, parallel there, but yeah, you need
yeah,
to have some sort of a stakes there,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just like, imagine you're reading a dialogue between two characters and they agree with each other. It's like, we should do this. Like, yes, okay, that's it.
okay.
That's
Yeah.
boring. Like, so you need to have those things.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, a lot of the inspiration comes with, again, listening to people, listening to what people
Mhm,
say, listening to new shows,
mhm.
especially when they're funny. I mean, I
Yeah,
do like a lot of like more serious shows, and I go deeper into those. But sometimes when you just want to write like good dialogue, funny and stuff,
mhm.
like, you can go there. And depends, again, like what you were saying, KJ. It makes a lot of sense, because whatever you're writing, you might have a different approach to each one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are 100% completely 180 different, you and I, and to be like so everybody, you need to know that I have been on the receiving end of Oscars. So I don't know if I agree with you on that. Tell me more. And then he's constantly coming back with how like these pretty logical arguments about how he doesn't agree with you. And honestly, it can be really frustrating sometimes, but I can totally see that you are going to write me as one of your characters. And I don't know how I feel about that right now. I'm now realizing this is going to be my fate. I'm going to end up in an Oscar Sisenya novel and I'm going to be like, oh God, oh
No, but it's
God.
I think it's really good to have different points of view, because
Oh, yeah.
if not, it
Yeah.
just gets boring. It's like an echo chamber,
Yeah.
and you don't want to be
Yeah.
that. So
It challenges you, and constantly
yeah,
as writers, we are always challenged, and we always need to be challenged, right? Because I mean, first of all, writing is a very challenging endeavor. And I think it's interesting that you're very much a dialogue. Your dialogue is really on point, but you do actually deliver a lot of the subtext through what is not said
yeah,
in your dialogue. You are really, really good at that. for me, I am very light on dialogue and I'm more like there's a lot of interiority for me because basically I sit by myself and, talk to myself pretty much all day, every day. I am a professional writer. I sit down here in my nerd cave and this is what I do
You
is I
don't
talk
leave
to
your
myself.
home in a
I
week.
never leave my home. It's like I am like the quintessential weirdo writer who nobody ever sees, but they've heard whispers of. I'm
You
like
would be
Lemony
totally
Snicket.
comfortable with a cabin in the woods.
Oh yeah, bring it
Besides the
on.
woods part, like the
Besides,
cabin
no,
in
I want the woods, but I want like full indoor plumbing. I want like luxury. This
high
is what
speed
I want.
internet, all those things.
100% high speed
Yeah,
internet.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. This would totally be me. I'm like Lemony Snicket, and people aren't going to really believe that I
yeah.
exist, but I'm okay with that. Um, so like I'm so different from you. I do enjoy the walks, but I love being in my own space, in my own head. And one of the other things that really helps me with inspiration is actually art. I'm an artist
Mm,
as well, like a
yeah.
hobby artist, but really sort of focusing on a new piece that I'm working on. Like right now I'm working on a dragon, but I do the same thing as I put on my noise canceling headphones. I listen to one of the soundtracks of one of the novels that I'm working on and I'm thinking of this dragon, but I'm also thinking of my stories and the interiority and the feelings and I just want this emotional roller coaster for my readers because I want to feel that emotional roller
Mm,
coaster when I'm
hmm.
also writing it. I want this epic like goosebump spine tingling moments and when I'm
Yeah.
feeling that, I get that a lot when I'm in that moment of creativity and that translates to my writing. So I'm always it's I always have a piece of artwork that's ongoing.
I really like what you said about art. I'm not.
Mhm.
I mean, I like drawing, but my drawing is pretty. I would say pretty sketchy. In the way of that it's a sketch and the way that it's sketchy.
Ba-dum-tsh.
Yeah. But the one of the things I like it's going to art exhibitions, and I actually
Ah, yeah.
purchased a membership of the AGO like a few years ago
Yeah.
because I like to go there and it's quiet. There's art
Mhm,
around you, and it gives me place to focus on things that are
mhm.
outside my four walls. And
Yeah.
it's because usually I leave my life between my office, my home, and I mean we can go out for dinner or those things, and I
Mhm.
would take walks around the lake. But sometimes it gets very like a routine. So
Yeah.
like I go to the lake every day and walk, and
Yeah.
but it's the same lake. So it might at some point I need something different. So
Yeah.
I got this. I the AGO is like maybe 20 minutes away from me. So I go there.
Mhm,
I was gonna say for free, but I don't go for free because I had the membership. But I go
mhm,
there, and it gives me like it's a different perspective, and it's kind of
mhm.
like stepping outside of my usual world to
Yeah.
get inspiration from the outside.
From other artists and
Right,
creators.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
I
mean,
I Sorry, I used to do something similar, and I think, like, now it's starting to all come back to me pre-COVID. What I actually used to do is I had, for 2 years, a membership to the Royal Ontario Museum here in Toronto, the
yeah,
ROM,
yeah, I
and I
have that
used
as
to
well.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to go on my own, and I'd love to go to the Egyptian section, I'd love to go to the Grecian section, the Mesopotamian, and it's just, like it was just so phenomenal just being you felt like you were walking into, like, the belly of a magical, palace or castle, and
yeah.
it's like the lighting and everything was just I should do that again. Thank you for
You should
bringing
do.
that
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
Oscar, because we are now post-COVID.
You know what? I'm gonna take what you said as a segue to the other thing that inspires me. It's traveling. Like you mentioned, like going to the Egyptian part and all the thing in museums. Every time that I travel, I try to go at least once or twice a year somewhere
Mhm,
new, like
mhm,
another place that I've never been at.
mhm.
And one of the things I find there is it's a different culture, a different language, and it just gives us this extra inspiration. And even if it's not something that is related to what I'm writing, it gives you a different point of view, and I really like that. So I would say traveling. I mean, it's costly. It's not something you can do all year, but it's something that I like to do.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I would even layer on to and I love traveling. I always get so much inspiration when I travel, is also, like, the sensory experience of travel. I always
Yeah,
feel like every different country I land in has a different smell.
Yes.
right? They all smell different, and that's not something that you're gonna get, Googling or something.
No.
But also, for a lot of particularly writers, let's be real, we don't make a ton of money. Traveling can be like financially, it can be a bit of there's a barrier there. What I used to do a lot, and I still do it sometimes, is Google Street View and
Hmm.
Google Earth Pro were such an inspiration for me. And it got to the point sometimes where I would just be hours just wandering around in Google Street View or Google
Hmm.
Earth Pro, and I would get so much inspiration there. And just like my sense of wonder would just be so heightened. And then I'd be able to jump back into, whatever project I was working on because I'm feeling this like this buzz. I prefer urban fantasy. So it makes sense for me to see these places from
Right.
my own, desk, my butt in my chair here, even though, I'd like to actually travel there, but I can't
Yeah,
always do
traveling's
it.
better, but that's like a cheap,
This is
good
like
alternative.
yeah, so this is like consider this your alternative, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Google Earth Pro is amazing. I
yeah.
love it so much. Yeah.
So I think one
Yep.
of the things that we both agree in what we're just talking today is that a lot of inspiration comes from hobbies, from our hobbies, or doing
Mhm.
something that we usually don't do.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a game master. I play Pathfinder now. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons. And one of the things I love about my adventures when I'm preparing them is that I have a flow in my head. I
Mhm.
usually write adventures maybe 1 or 2 weeks in advance because you never know what the characters are going to do. Like
Yeah.
if I write
Yeah.
a campaign that it's going to take us from point A to point V in 16 levels.
Mhm.
Maybe in level 4 my players decide to do something else, and then the
Which we
other,
usually
which exactly because I don't know how people are going to react to the things that
Yeah.
I'm doing. So it's really fun to see those things
Mhm.
because I get inspired by how people react to the situations that I'm in. And I think like, okay, so if I'm writing this character, maybe this character is going to react differently. So I get a lot
Mhm.
of inspiration from that. I mean, in the end, I think my inspiration comes from interacting with people, how
Mhm.
how humans react to each other, and
Mhm.
and making sure that I don't know, like I know what people are thinking because in the end,
Yeah.
the character that I'm writing, it's a person, and
Yep.
they cannot all think the same. So
Yeah.
most of my inspirations come from there.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what we're writing, what setting we have, what the conflict, the interior and the exterior conflicts. We are always writing people, but
Yeah,
how we approach it is completely different.
totally different.
You know what I think would be cool is that if we, traded some of these techniques and I tried out you sit in a coffee shop and just listen to people without my noise canceling headphones, because let's be real, I live for these noise canceling headphones. But if I did what you're doing and I tested it out and then I got to writing to see how that worked for me. And if
Mhm.
you did something that I do, like go on Google Earth Pro for like it pairs well with a nice Chianti on a Saturday night. I'm not gonna lie. It's a great self-date night. Uh,
Yeah,
give that a try. Something like that. Like just try out some other writers inspirations and experiences and just see, something might percolate to the surface for
yeah,
you and you might actually end up with that breakthrough. And to be honest, this is why how to writing books or, Stephen King's On Writing, this is why they sell because we
yeah,
always are looking for new ways to do the same thing we've been doing over and
yeah.
over and over again.
And what it's funny is that each person gets inspiration differently. I mean,
Yeah.
another one that I do, and I know you do it as well, is video games.
Oh,
Like video games
yeah.
can provide
Oh,
a ton of inspiration. Just to give you an
yes.
idea, I was writing kind of like a sci-fi novel
Yeah.
3 years ago,
Yeah.
and I was like looking into like completely dystopian Earth. Like there had been like
Mhm.
a nuclear winter, and everything was destroyed. And then Cyberpunk came out, the video game Cyberpunk
Mhm. Mhm.
2077
Mhm.
came out, and I was playing through it, and it's
Mhm.
like this world is fascinating. I'm going to change my world to something like this. And it's not exactly cyberpunk, but I took a lot of inspiration from the game and put it in my writing, and I created a completely new world that it's kind of like half destroyed, half cyberpunk. So a lot of things can come from video games and those things, and I know you
Yeah.
do it as well.
I do, yeah. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I'd like just everybody notice Oscar rolling his eyes because I've been obsessed with this game for 2 years,
It's the
and he's
only
trying to.
game that she has played
It,
in her life. So
it's not true, okay? But anyways, so Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it's the world there that has given me so much inspiration. And based in that world that I've been wandering around, it's like my own version of Google Earth Pro or Google Street View, but it's like ancient magical Greece.
yeah,
I have like 4 new plot bunnies, like novel ideas. Like,
I mentioned this before, but for example, Warcraft. I used to play World of
mhm.
Warcraft hardcore for a while with my friends.
Wow.
And I think one of the things I loved about the world is the lore that exists there. There's like
Yes.
yeah, like all the origins of the world, like all the
Mhm.
mythical creatures that exist there and all that. And I love that. And I love when a world is built like that. And video games, because they need to be cohesive and everything, they're really well
Yes.
done. Because
Yeah.
and you become the character there, so it gives a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't play video games, give it a try. I recommend Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but Oscar is probably gonna be
Don't
like,
listen
"Don't,
to her.
don't, don't, don't
Yeah.
listen to her,
No,
don't listen to her."
it's a good game. I had to say, I really enjoyed it when I played it
Yep,
once. But
17 times.
yeah. So let's wrap up our
Yes.
episode using the thing that I think every single writer gets inspiration
Mm.
from, which is books. So
Yeah.
we haven't talked about books because we wanted to keep it at the end. So let's start with
Mhm.
you, KJ. Like, what happens when you're reading something and you get inspired?
My goodness. Oh, it's a flood of emotions, to be honest, because to be right now I'm feeling a lot of career envy, meaning that I feel like I'm seeing all these amazing novels of debut authors, and the novels are so good, the writing is so good, and they've hit New York Times bestsellers, and I'm just like, "Oh, I have to do that." But I inhale these novels and I learn from the writing, and then I say, "Okay, how are they doing this?
Yeah,
Because I am feeling feels right now and I want that for
yeah,
when I'm writing."
yeah,
So that's yeah, that's my inspiration. One of them anyways. How about
yeah.
you, Oscar? I know you have some different ones.
Yeah, I mean, books for me are like I'm always reading. I'm always reading
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and it's something I just get inspired. And the things that I like to read, many things. Like I know here we
Mhm.
talk about fantasy, and usually the books that I show that I'm reading are fantasy related. But
Mhm.
I read a lot of different things. Read a lot of nonfiction as well,
Mhm.
especially like historical books,
Mhm.
analysis on like economy. I like economy.
Yeah, political
Social issues, those
structures. Yeah.
things. So I do get a lot of inspiration from all those things that I'm reading.
Mhm.
As I said, like I read the news. For me, it's very, very important
Mhm.
to read them because I know what's happening in the world. Sometimes can be depressing, exhausting, whatever it is, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy with myself if I lived in my little bubble without knowing what's happening outside.
If you
And
lived
I
in
know
my bubble.
exactly, like for example, for it works for you, which is great, but
Yeah.
for me, it would be like I cannot write something that is going to resonate with the people in the
Yeah.
world if I don't know what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So I try to be aware of what's going on. And there's so much nonfiction that deals with that. Like
Yeah.
recently, I read a book called Caste by Isabel
Yeah.
Wilkerson that talks
Yeah.
about the caste system in the US and compares it with Nazi Germany and with the Indian caste system.
Mhm.
And when I was reading it, I was like, well, this doesn't sound that far from how we do things in Mexico. So for me, it was really
Yeah.
interesting to understand the system, the caste system,
Mhm.
which is something very real and very, very contemporary for me.
Mhm.
So so I can build something out of that. So in the end, for me, reading is it's just I just love information. I would say
Yeah. You're
just for
an
inform
information
exactly,
person.
yeah.
Yeah.
I need I'm very, very analytical. I mentioned before that I'm
Mhm.
a software engineer by that was my degree in university, and I
Mhm.
work in tech. So for
Mm.
me, and analyzing data, analyzing all the things that are happening, it allows me to create a better output. I sound like a
Yeah.
machine, but that's kind
He
of
is a
what it is.
machine. He's very
Yeah.
much a machine. But you know what? That reminds me of one of the earlier episodes that we recorded actually, on how we can actually use fantasy to retell stories.
Yeah.
And this is what you're doing as well. Like a lot of, the concepts, the higher concepts that you're working on, take something like, Isabel Wilkerson's cast, and it sort of says, okay, but how can we use this? But also, how can we retell it in like a
Mhm.
cyberpunk world? How can we make it better? What are the
Yep.
other issues underneath? So, that's I do the same thing too with some nonfiction. But to be honest, I have to really look after my mental health. I do not read the news. I cannot, yeah, look after it. I'm
And
all about mental health.
whatever works for me, it might not
Yeah.
work for you, of course, and it
Yeah.
might not
Yeah.
work
Yeah. Yeah.
for everybody else. And as you said, KJ, like on writing by Stephen King, that's somewhere here
Hmm.
in my
it's,
bookshelf.
it's in your trove.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's over there. There's a lot of things that I agree with him. There's some things that I
Hmm.
don't, but it's good
Hmm.
to hear those things because every person has a different personality and every person has a
Yeah.
different way to get inspired, to complete their books, everything. So,
Yeah.
and I really love that we were able to tell how we get inspired,
Yeah.
all the little things that are part of you, because our audience, I'm pretty sure some will be like, oh yeah, that totally resonates with me,
Yeah.
and then the next thing we say is like, no, that's not me,
Yeah. Or what
because
do you
each
think?
person in the end is different. So
Yeah.
but I think this was a really good conversation,
Yes.
and if you like what we're doing, just make sure to like and subscribe in
Yes.
YouTube if you're watching us, or if you prefer the audio version, go to your favorite podcast app
Yep.
and listen to us there. Subscribe so you could get a notification every time that a new episode comes out.
Yeah, and check us out on Instagram at Why We Write Fantasy. You can also use the hashtag Why We Write Fantasy or WWWF. We will be checking them out.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and happy writing.